Hello, class. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, or whatever time that you're watching this video. It is a pleasant day for you. We have already discussed the first topic in mathematics in the modern world, which is all about mathematics in nature. Now, we are done with our second lesson, which is all about numbers and patterns. But before we proceed with the discussion of the lesson 2, allow me to do a recap on what we have discussed last time. Under the mathematics in nature, we do appreciate the nature a lot. And one of the topic that we elaborated the most was the Fibonacci sequence. Because according to the Fibonacci sequence, it is one of the sequences or one of the topic that really describes the nature, the spiral that it forms, and the pattern, and even the golden ratio. We have already introduced that in our previous discussion. But again, allow me to do a recap on the formulas that we have used in the Fibonacci sequence. It is being governed by three different formulas. The first formula was the basic formula for the Fibonacci sequence, wherein the next term is just equal to the sum of the present term and the previous term. Wherein x sub n plus 1 is our future term, x sub n is our present term, and x sub n minus 1 is our previous term. Now, for if provided that we don't have our previous term, kasi may mga cases talaga na gano'n na hindi ibibigay yung previous term, so we cannot use the first formula. There comes the second formula if the previous term is not given. So we have here x sub n plus 1 for the future term is equal to the present term multiplied by our golden ratio. Okay, based on my observation, this golden ratio can only be used at terms 8 and above. Okay, if you're going to apply these on terms 1 to 7, then there will be a very huge discrepancy. And if you're going to look at the values of the Fibonacci sequence, and if you're going to multiply the value of the phi, there will be a very huge discrepancy. No, hindi siya masyadong accurate. That's why I recommend to use this formula if we are talking about the 8th term. So to be more familiar, it has to be greater than 21. If the term is greater than 21, then you may apply this formula. Okay. Next is, what if we are looking for the previous term naman? Given this formula, by just using reverse mathematics, we just have to divide the present term by the golden ratio naman. But what is this golden ratio all about pala? Okay, the exact value of the golden ratio is this. That is 1 plus the square root of 5 over 2. Okay, and if we're going to solve that, if we're going to convert that into decimal, I will allow you to use this value, although medyo may kasunod pa siya, no? But we're going to use up to 6 decimal places lang. That is 1.618034. That is the value of the phi that we're going to use for now and for the rest of our discussion for the prelim. The next one is the Bayes formula. Okay, it is Fn is equal to quantity 1 plus the square root of 5 over 2 raised to n minus 1 minus square root of 5 over 2 quantity raised to n all over square root of 5. Okay, so dito naman sa formula na to, if you have your calculators with you, this is just direct input in your calculator. The only thing that you have to do is to change the n into the specific term that you're going that you're looking for. Let's say, for example, you are looking for the 23rd term of the Fibonacci sequence, then you just have to change n into 23. All of the n's there para hindi tayo masyadong ma-confuse. No? Even the n in the function. Now, since we're done with the recall of our topic or the recap of our topic, let us proceed to the objectives of the lesson. Some of the objectives has already been discussed with you. The first one, examine nature and relationship of numbers in a sequence. Okay. Number 2, generate a number, generate a pattern to form a number sequence. Determine the end term of the number sequence, solve for commonly used logic patterns, symbol patterns, number patterns, and word patterns. And number 5, give the significance of Fibonacci in the real world. Now, let's have our introduction for this topic. Okay, since the major topic is all about patterns, let us define patterns, or let us have some knowledge about the patterns. According to this, patterns are everywhere. People just need to learn to notice them. Okay, we can see it everywhere as we walk down the streets. We can see lots of patterns. And even if we are just inside our house, madami tayong pattern na makikita. We just have to appreciate it. And we're going to use mathematics to somehow appreciate these patterns. It seeks to discover relationship and connection between seemingly unrelated bits of information. Okay, studying patterns allow one to observe, hypothesize, discover, and create. According to this, today's mathematics is much more than algebra and geometry. Okay, especially in this particular topic wherein it really requires your good logical reasoning and your critical thinking. When we are going to solve problems about this topic, gagana talaga yung pagiging logical reasoner natin and critical thinker natin. So the way of doing it has evolved from just performing calculations or deductions into observing patterns, testing conjectures, and estimating results. Most likely, we are into the application of this mathematics. Next, by definition, mathematics has become the diverse discipline that deals with the data, measurements, and observation from science and works with models of natural phenomena, human behavior, and social system. Now, let's dig a little bit deeper on the idea of patterns. According to G.H. Hardy, um, he is a British mathematician who characterized mathematics as a study of patterns. According to him, it is an arrangement that helps observers anticipate what they might see or what happens next. It is also shows what may have come before. So it is also a study of the previous data, for example. Okay, and one of the most common example that we have that siguro alam natin tong example na to if we are watching news is the prediction of the weather, because there is a particular sector in the government who collects data from the weather, and then based on the data that they have gathered, they are trying to project the next possible weather or the next possible move. If there are typhoons, they are projecting the path of the typhoons, they are projecting the time of the landfall of the typhoon, no, para mas maging aware din yung ibang tao. That is one of the application of prediction in mathematics. And there are lots of possible predictions. Even in games, we use different kinds of predictions. We have to study patterns and so. Now, these are the patterns that we're going to deal with under this topic. We have the logic patterns. We also have the geometric patterns, word patterns, and number patterns. Let's start with the very first one, which is the logic patterns. Okay. Logic patterns deals with the characteristic of various objects, orders, or sequences, while others possess similar attributes. These patterns are seen on aptitude tests in which takers are shown a sequence of pictures and asked to select which figure comes next among several choices. So most likely, if you have already applied for a job, um, if you have already applied for a job, maybe you have these aptitude tests, or some of the entrance exam has these aptitude tests for them to be able to see how good you are in reasoning. No, because this is all about logical reasoning, since we're dealing with the logic patterns. Okay, now para mas malinawan tayo, magkaroon agad tayo ng example on how to apply these logic patterns. Okay. For example, identify the pattern and work out which one of the suggested images would complete the sequence. Okay. We have there four different images, and missing yung pangatlo. Just take a look at the choices. I will be giving you, you may pause the video for a while, and I will be giving you 30 seconds for you to answer this problem. So maybe 30 seconds is enough for you to grasp the answer. Is it letter A, letter B, letter C, or letter D? Okay, so the answer is letter B. If you have seen that, we will be having some sort of illustration kung bakit naging B yung sagot, no? So the first thing you can identify is that the triangle is alternatively flipping, vertically ruling out C and D. So let's take a look at the picture. If we're just going to look at this point, this is the upright triangle. This is a reverse triangle. So maybe the next one will also be the upright triangle. And we can rule out letter C and letter D for this item. So the only thing that we can look for is letter A or letter B. So parehas lang naman sila halos ng position. The only difference is the size of the box. Now, why B is the answer? Because if you're going to look at it, maybe that the box is shrinking and then from the shrink position, it may expand. So lalaki na yung box. That's why B is the correct answer. If we're going to place in A, so parang medyo may conflict when it comes to the sizes. It must be from large to small and small to large. Just like following some of the patterns in a sinusoid. Okay, anyway, let's proceed to the next example. Okay, this one. Example, the bottom boxes create a rule that has to be applied in the box directly above them. Select which of options A to F corresponds to the rule below the box with the question mark. Okay, so this one is what we're looking for. This is the rule that we are talking about, and this rule applies to this image. So before you answer, make sure that you analyze the rules first that is being applied in this picture. Again, I will be giving you 30 seconds to answer this problem, and after 30 seconds, titingnan na natin yung sagot. So what may be the possible answer? Just take a look at the rules first, the rules that are being applied on that position. Okay, so time's up. Okay, if we're going to focus or if we're going to look back at these questions, at this particular question, if you can see the gray arrow, it corresponds to the number of black or the shaded part or the shaded portions in this image. So we have here three gray arrow. It also corresponds to three shaded regions. Okay, so here we have one. It corresponds to one shaded part. We also have one here. Okay, so probably the next one or the one that we're looking for has three dots or three dark or three shaded regions. If we're going to look at the choices A to F, the only option na meron daw tatlong shaded part is letter E. That's why for this particular problem, the answer is letter E. Okay, that will be the answer because it follows the rule at the bottom. Now let's talk about geometric shapes. So we're already done with the first one, which is all about the logic patterns. Now let's proceed to the geometric patterns. Geometric patterns deals with a motif or design that depicts abstract shape like lines, polygons, and circles, and typically repeats like a wallpaper. So maybe this is the typical pattern that we know. And this is parang observable siya, no? Madali siyang ma-observe. Let's say, for example, in our first problem, study the pattern and determine the shape that comes next. Okay, we have there 1, 2 is to 2 or 2 by 2. We have here 3 by 3 box that is being formed by circles. 4 by 4. Okay, so probably, so sagutan na natin dito agad, no? Probably the next one will be having 5 by 5 image. So the answer will be 5. So So madali lang when it comes to geometric patterns because you're just going to observe the next possible pattern. Next one, study the pattern and determine the shape that comes next. So we have here three picture. Okay, it is forming a triangle. No, though probably that the fourth picture will be forming a triangle also, but with more lines. So if we're going to count the lines of, or if we're going to count the circles, it must add four more. No, just like for example in our answer. Okay, so nadagdagan na yung sagot na, nadagdagan na yung ating image. This will be the answer. Now, we are done with the two patterns. So let's proceed with the word patterns. Word patterns deals with the metrical patterns of poems and the syntactic patterns on how we make nouns plural or verbs past tense are both word patterns. So the way that even in the subject-verb agreement, we also have patterns there. How we change these verbs into past tense, kapag regular verb or irregular verb, meron pa rin tayong tinatawag na pattern. And each supports mathematical as well as natural language understanding. So for our first example, this has something to do with cryptography. When we say cryptography, it is used to enhance the security of the message or the word. So yun yung gagawin natin dito. No? We're going to encrypt the message so that the original message cannot be read unless you know the encrypting or the encryption pattern. If the word modern can be encrypted as OQFGTP, how can you code the word world? Okay, I will be giving you another 30 seconds to solve for this. Take a look at the patterns that it forms. Okay, so as you can see, if the word modern can be encrypted as OQFGTP, it is just two letters after the actual word. For example, instead of M, we're going to encode O as a replacement for M for a certain encryption pattern. For O, we're going to skip a letter and get the next one, which is Q. So that is OPQ. And then we're going to encode Q in place of O. Now for the word world, we're going to do the same since that we have an encryption pattern to follow. Okay, for this matter, the answer was letter B. That is Y, Q, T, and F. Okay, this was what I'm talking about earlier. We're just going to skip a letter and then get the next letter after that. And we're going to get that as our encryption pattern. Now for the world, naman, instead of getting the actual world or the actual letters for the word, we're going to encrypt it, skip one letter, and then get the other. So that's why the answer is YQT and F. Now, for the next example, doctor, nurse is to blank follower. So, madali lang to, no? When we see these kinds of questions, parang bonus question na lang sa atin pagdating ng quiz. Ano, ganito lang kadali lahat. So, doctor, nurse is to leader follower. The correct answer is letter B. Now, let's proceed to the last part, which is all about the number patterns. Okay, number patterns deals with the prediction of the next term in a sequence. Working with the number patterns leads directly to the concept of functions in mathematics, a formal description of the relationship among different quantities. We're going to talk about numerical values here. That's why it is being called number patterns. So it has applications of functions now. Now, a pattern may have a list of numbers in which a constant number is getting added to get the succeeding terms. Meron tayong constant number na tinatawag and we call this pattern as arithmetic sequence. No? Kapag meron tayong arithmetic sequence, we know that there is a common difference or the difference between the succeeding numbers are just the same. So we also have the other term which is the harmonic sequence. That is just the reciprocate of our arithmetic sequence, and the other one is the geometric sequence na meron tayong tinatawag na common ratio, which is also somehow medyo may relationship din siya sa Fibonacci numbers natin kasi gumagamit din tayo ng ratio, but the ratio in the Fibonacci number is fixed. That is 1.618034, the one that we're going to use. Okay, again, for this example, we have here 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and 60. The first thing that you have to do in the observance of the pattern is to determine the differences between the numbers. Okay, for example, for this one, if you can see, and it's very obvious that the difference is 10, and in the succeeding numbers, the difference is 10. So if we have this, we can predict the next terms. For example, the next term after 60, we just have to add 10. For another term, it will be equal to 70, 80, 90, 100, and so on and so forth. As long as we know the pattern, we can predict the next term. Okay, the next one, a pattern may have increasing terms because the number to be added is increasing in a predictable way. So pwede din namang hindi siya constant, but the numbers are increasing in a predictable way. For example, in this one, okay, let's try to look at the differences between the numbers. We have there 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as their differences in the succeeding terms. So probably that the next term will have a difference of 6 with the next term, or the next term will have a difference of 6 with its previous term. That's why we can predict the next term. If we're just going to add 6 on 29, we will obtain 35, and maybe the next number after 35 will be 7. Okay, meron naman siyang difference na 7 dun sa succeeding terms niya. And then that will be 42, and so on and so forth. Next, a pattern may be decreasing naman because the number to be added is increasing in a predictable way. So pwede din naman daw siyang decreasing. Okay, we can predict the next term after 32. It is maybe that we just have to add negative 45 for it, so it will become negative 77. Okay, and just for example, we're going to look at the first term naman, or the term before 118. Maybe we just have to do the reverse mathematics. Instead of adding negative 20 to it, we're going to subtract negative 15 from it, from our terms. So 118 minus negative 15, that is equal to 133. So that will be our term before 118. Just in case that we're looking for that. So ganun po yung pattern na titingnan natin. Okay, now for your activity, for your problem set number 1, and if you have your textbook with you, do abstraction critical thinking on page 12 of the textbook. If you have any questions with you, so don't hesitate to ask, don't hesitate to message your instructor. Okay, that's all for today. God bless everyone.